Oh, banger. Welcome back to another episode with Fight Night Picks. As always, we're brought to you by SimBody. Vertiball is now SimBody. If you head on over to their website, simbody.com, you're going to get all the great products that you know and love, including the SimBody Vertiroller and the Vertiball that you have seen most likely here in studio. Look at that. Place it, lock it, attach it, Vertiball, all sorts of great stuff over there if you want to roll out those old tired muscles and you don't want to go with that old lacrosse ball. They're also coming out with that very new product that you can see right in front of you. And if I head on over to my cart, look at that. I've already got a Vertiball over there. Little bit of a deal right there. And if you hit the try for 60 days risk-free, use the promo code FNP and you're going to get 10% off your order. With that code FNP at simbody.com, you're really helping out another local company here in New Brunswick, Canada. Can't wait for it. The new name, SimBody at simbody.com. And as we always say, let's get into it.
A last look at the big card. Be sure to head into the chat and have your say. Let's get into it and join in Fight Night Picks question mark kicks.
Just like that, we're back. Ooh. Matt, we're gonna have to adjust that a little bit, but we're set for UFC 282.
You know what I've noticed, though, while we're sitting here waiting for the show to begin?
What?
I'm so glad we don't cover soccer, because a bunch of people's opinions in our chats are a lot more heated about soccer than they are about MMA. So I'm pretty happy that we're just talking about the UFC today and not the World Cup.
Yeah, I couldn't care less about soccer, but Matt, what I do know
You wear
is
a jersey all the time.
UFC 282, it's a big-time card. Now, obviously, we lost Prochazka as the champion who's supposed to take on Teixeira. The fight is off. And ultimately, we get Blachowicz versus Ankalaev for that 200-pound strap. Now, it's not an interim strap. It's just vacant. So, ultimately, it seems like the winner of this fight is going to fight Glover Teixeira. And then out of that, maybe Yuri Prochazka early next year. But, Matt, this is one of those cards where I tweeted it out there a few days ago. The UFC's pre-fight press conference, the picture for it was Paddy Pimblett and Ilia Topuria. Two guys who aren't even fighting each other. That's how low stock the UFC has in this entire card. And it's one of the weakest pay-per-views we've had in a really long time.
It is one of the weakest pay-per-views, but I'll be honest, there's a lot of fights on this card that I am excited for. It might not have the top-end talent that some of the other pay-per-view cards do, but it's a fairly deep card, if we're being honest. Like you had mentioned, Ilia Topuria, Paddy Pimblett, Bryce Mitchell. There's good names that the UFC are definitely trying to invest in on this card. And I think that's why we have seen them promote a lot more of the prospects on this card than maybe some of the fighters at the top of the card, like a Robbie Lawler formerly, I know he's not in it now, or a Ponzinibbio, or even in the main event, Jan Blachowicz, Ankalaev. I know these are two extremely talented fighters, and I know people who are fairly excited for this new main event. I think everybody realizes just how good of a fighter Jan Blachowicz is. I know it took him a very long time to become kind of a refined product, but you see this in baseball all the time. Think about how many guys are in the minor leagues for years and years and years. All of a sudden, they get called up in their 30s, and they can actually play pretty well. And for Jan Blachowicz, he reminds me a lot of one of those guys who spent a lot of his career.
He is the Paulo Orlando of Major League Baseball.
It took Jan a long time for him to really put it all together, but he is a very good refined product. And the great thing about fighting a guy like Jan Blachowicz is he's going to test you in every area of your game. And if Magomed Ankalaev is sort of the prince that is yet to be crowned in this division, this is going to be the fight that really figures it out for us. Because if he does beat Jan, like you said, you're fighting Glover next, which is a really difficult fight, a really strong grappler. And let's say you get over that hump too, well, you're probably matched up with Yuri after that, and that's another extremely difficult fight.
Yeah, and I mean, for the people that think that I'm way out to left field on this one, again, you have a vacant title fight that wasn't supposed to be a main event. You have a co-main event of a pay-per-view that's unranked fighters, and there's hype with one fighter, not hype with the other. You have a fighter on kind of the worst streak of his career, really the worst streak of his career, Darren Till taking on Dricus du Plessis. Bryce Mitchell, Ilia Topuria has completely flown under the radar throughout this week. But what we will do, we will throw it on over to our Fight of the Night screen, because, Matt, one of them changed. And Malone Hart hits up a giant super chat. Wonder Boy, glad the Allen boys are back in the pay-per-view game.
He can keep the Wonder Boy nickname if he keeps on looking that good.
If you move over a little bit, but Alex Morono taking on Santiago Ponzinibbio. Originally, this is Robbie Lawler Ponzinibbio, but Alex Morono always shows up. He's game when it is on short notice. Malone Hart is he's the MVP of the show already, right up at the start. But when you look at this fight, Matt, I know a lot of people might not be excited because they have to pay to watch this one, but I'm excited about it because it is an exciting matchup on paper.
You really are down on this pay-per-view. I think it is a really fun fight because for Alex Morono, he's probably going to fight this fight in a style that Robbie Lawler would. He's going to come forward with a lot of pressure. He's going to throw a lot of volume, and that's always going to be a fun type of fight when Santiago Ponzinibbio is involved. He has great counter shots. He's down to brawl. He can throw big hooks. He is a good counter fighter. Both guys have good cardio too, and they're both fairly durable, so I don't think this is going to be a fight that's over just like that, so it should be an incredibly fun fight.
Matthew Moore saying, I was thinking this is a pop and popcorn fight. You're definitely right on that one. And if we have a look at our second pick, Matt, Chris Curtis taking on Joaquin Buckley. Both guys show up on weight, in shape. They don't seem to like each other very much, which is always good to see. But for Chris Curtis, his last time out, he didn't look amazing. And for Joaquin Buckley's last time out, he got frustrated until the last 25 seconds of the third round when he finally unleashed. So for both of these guys, if Buckley walks forward, Chris Curtis is so good at countering. This should be a striker's paradise. I love this fight.
And it's a really important fight, too, because both these guys are sort of those borderline ranked fighters, where 1 week they'll be in the rankings, 1 week they might be out of the rankings. And a fight like this is really important, because if you do lose, it's going to take you 2, 3, 4 more fights, maybe, to then get another ranked opponent. And I do think these guys are in a very similar position in the rankings. So a win's going to do tremendous things for them, but a loss can set them back pretty far, too. And I think that both guys realize just the stakes that are involved in this fight, and that's why it should be such a good one.
Yeah, Oldar saying awesome fight. It's like 50-50. It definitely feels that way. And if this is the first time that you tuned in for Fight Night question mark kicks, rather, we thank you. It is one of those cards where there's a lot of prospects. There's quite a few debuts. You were supposed to get 6 debuts on this card. You're not going to get 6 now because OSP Tricoli, that fight is off. Daniel De Silva out of his bout with Vinicius Salvador. That fight's off the card, so it continues to whittle it down. You do, though, have plenty of debuts, some Dana White's Contender Series fighters to get excited about. And Matt, again, a lot of people talking about Topuria, who's taking on Bryce Mitchell. But
it's a really fun
fight that's on this card, Matt, Cameron Saaiman taking on Steven Koslow. He was that dime man way back when, and he was dishing him out at that point. But if you look at it for Koslow, Malone Hart with Super Chat, I was more pumped for last week than this week. Is that prudish?
I think this week is a deeper card, honestly.
Deeper than a Fight Night card? I would hope so.
Okay.
There's less ranked fighters on this card than there was in the Fight Night last week.
There might be less ranked fighters, but the co-main event of this is still better than the co-main event last week. Like, I don't care if Paddy Pimblett and Jared Gordon aren't ranked. That's still a really important fight in the division. So I think this is sleeper card. I really do think there's going to be 4, 5, 6 fights that are going to be in competition for Fight of the Night by the end of this.
The trouble is the last pay-per-view of the year. It shouldn't be a sleeper card when it's at T-Mobile Arena.
But it's not like it's a New Year's. We're in the middle of December.
It is what it is. But when it comes down to this fight, Matt, Cameron Saaiman, he's obviously a teammate, a team CIT with Dricus du Plessis. He's on the main card. And for Saaiman, undefeated. He looked amazing on Dana White's Contender Series in his fight over there. He didn't really face a good level of competition coming up and through the ranks. But if you do look at it for Saaiman, a very, very interesting prospect. He can strike the clinch to get the takedown. And then he really grinds on his opponents. Good ground and pound. He has decent setups with his submissions. He does kind of go submission over position in a lot of senses. He's not your Danny Sabatello of the world if you watched Bellator last night. But for Cameron Saaiman, he's been billed as a kickboxer because he kickboxed since he was a young kid. And you don't necessarily see that in his style, I guess, when I watch him fight.
But the way that he grapples is also kind of the way that he strikes. He's going to take some risks for more offense. That's going to be really interesting because I think Koslow is a slept-on prospect, and that's the weird thing about this fight. Normally, you wouldn't match up 2 guys like this early in their UFC careers. I know at a certain point, hey, we've got a debuting fighter. You can't always have them fighting someone who's been around for 10 or 15 fights, so they're going to have to fight another debuting fighter. But still, I think this is a very high-level matchup. I just think for Cameron Saaiman, he's just a little bit bit more well-rounded with his skill set. Again, I worry about him taking some of those bigger risks when he does start to fight fighters who are a little bit higher up in this division, but I think this is a really fun fight to start the card.
Yeah, to me, this feels like a fight where either Saaiman makes a big mistake or you see Steven Koslow, who is I wouldn't say a one-hitter quitter with the fact that his jiu-jitsu is so good, because his striking's definitely advanced throughout his career. But if you do look at it for Steven Koslow, hasn't really fought the greatest level competition in his own right, over with Combat Night Pro, but all first-round finishes in his pro career. He had a nice amateur career, 10-1 over there. So some pretty good stuff out of Koslow. You do like to see that. If we have a look at the odds in this matchup, Matt, I did a little bit of a calculation before this one on implied odds. So Cameron Saaiman opened -150, -326, and Steven Koslow opened, I'm going to say it was +130, and now he's a pretty big underdog, +260, because it doesn't want to load over there. But the point of it is, for Cameron Saaiman, if he's that big of a favorite, he's about an 80% implied odds to get a win in this matchup. If we have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes, 63% Saaiman, 37% Koslow. So the fans have it below that implied percentage. And to me, when I do look at an implied percentage that high, do I think Cameron Saaiman wins this fight 8 times out of 10? Not at all. So that's why I'm going with Steven Koslow. I do like the unorthodox strikes. I like the great jiu-jitsu from top or from bottom. I think Saaiman has a definite advantage in the wrestling, so maybe he's able to control positions in this fight. But for me, I like the X Factor Koslow. The other thing about Koslow, this is third short notice call to the UFC. The other names that we mentioned were really big. Out of those calls, Mario Bautista, Christian Rodriguez, he was ready. He also made weight for sure, so I like Koslow as an underdog on this card, and a pretty big underdog at that.
I like Cameron in the matchup because we say this on all the cards. We don't pick the picks based on the odds, we do it based on who we think is going to win. I think he is the more well-rounded out of these two, but again, I don't think Koslow is going to be this one-and-done kind of fighter whatsoever. He is a very credited grappler. He's a very good MMA grappler too because of his aggressiveness and his ability to end via submission too. He's not someone who really has to rely on ground control and a lot of it to get a win, so I think Koslow has a promising future, but I do like Cameron in the matchup.
All right, a big time fight, Matt, to start off this card. Our second fight, TJ Brown taking on Erik Silva. Now for TJ Brown, probably not training out of the gym that he usually trains out of. Just Westside MMA Arkansas. Forget about that other gym, just Westside MMA Arkansas. But he trains there with Bryce Mitchell, and he's taking on Erik Silva. I mean, it's the king. His brother's not Gabriel Fly Silva.
He's not.
It's not that guy that was in the UFC forever. But I really want to hear what people are thinking of in this matchup. CT710 saying, love Erik Silva. We're getting close to 300 tuning in. Only 34 likes, guys. Come on. Let's go. But Matt, when we do look at this matchup, Erik Silva's jiu-jitsu, that is lights out jiu-jitsu. And
great.
He has the striking that complements. It's not often that you get a 35-year-old making their debut in the UFC. For TJ Brown, he gets dropped by right hands like they're going out of style. But TJ Brown, Matt, I hate that. I think that meme's so stupid.
He's hard to look good against.
I hate that meme that's the x-ray with the pit bulls in the chest, but my God, TJ Brown's got that dog in him. And if you watch his fights, it's hard to finish TJ Brown unless he makes a crucial, critical mistake.
And he's one of those grit and grime kind of fighters. Like, if you have any question marks in your cardio, he is going to exploit them. But the weird thing about TJ Brown, I brought this up at length during the prediction video this week, was if he works a lot in the first round, then yes, you do worry about how he's going to look in the third round. But on the flip side, let's say Erik Silva goes out there and expends a lot of energy getting his own takedowns. TJ Brown could kind of flip the script and then become that grinder who looks good in the third round. So I think pacing is going to be very important in this fight, more so than maybe any other on the card, just because whoever isn't able to really last into that third round is going to be at a huge disadvantage, because I think this fight is going to be contested a lot on the mat, because Silva, I think, is he going to defend the takedowns? Of course he will, but I think he will invite some of the grappling exchanges at a certain point, and that's what it's really going to come down to. How heavy on top is TJ Brown going to be? How much can he threaten with submissions and whatnot? So I think this is a really interesting fight, but for Brown, I think it is going to be a difficult one. We were talking about this a little bit before we went on air, and you had mentioned it. TJ Brown cuts a lot of weight to get to this weight class, and I wonder how much that does affect his cardio at a certain point. Like, Matt Schnell, for instance, is a guy who we've seen him get hurt at 125 a lot, and he has had a well-documented history of having a really difficult time making that weight class. I know for TJ Brown, it's not the same story as a guy like Matt Schnell, but I wonder if his cardio could somehow be affected to a similar thing with him.
And it did in that Jordan Griffin fight.
Exactly.
I mean, he wrestled, and he couldn't get anything out of it. Griffin was able to sink in a submission attempt off of the takedown from TJ Brown. He can leave his head out there. Like, he is a very good wrestler.
He's
Don't
a
get me
strong
wrong,
guy.
in this featherweight division. Brown open plus 190, minus 110, so the odds are at par. Erik Silva open minus 225, minus 109 or thereabouts. So just like that, I mean, you had a fairly big underdog in TJ Brown, fairly big favorite in Erik Silva. They're very close. 68% of the fans at Fight Night Picks going with Erik Silva. I have Silva in the matchup as well. I do like the striking. I think it's a great compliment. You look at his record, you see all those submission wins, but there's a method to his madness. Erik Silva in his own right has pretty darn good wrestling for Latin America. He has good striking coming out of the camp that he does come out of, but he has a really slick back take in his own right. So I do like Erik Silva. I think he's quite a refined prospect. I know, again, he's very old to be making his UFC debut in terms of age in this featherweight division. And listen, Erik Silva, that window is... It's closing, but for me, I do like Silva in the matchup. I think it's going to be really close, and my God, guys, in the chat, you got to calm down. You got to calm down about the soccer, and you got to calm down with picking folks out. We're trying to have fun here talking about the fights. Matt, in this one, are you in agreement there?
I do like Erik Silva, but again, TJ Brown's one of those difficult fighters to look good against. If you get off to a really good start, he's going to make you regret it in the third round for wasting all that energy, but I think it should be a fun fight that will be contested on the mat quite a bit, but I like Erik Silva.
All right, we move into another one, and this one's kind of crazy because Alexander Hernandez definitely doesn't look like the guy on the right-hand side.
Why is it so low on the card is my question.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, when you consider
This one fight of the night, I don't think anybody would be surprised whatsoever, but it's only the third fight that we're getting above the prelims.
Yeah, and it is a really high level one because if you consider it, for Billy Quarantillo, his last fight was against a ranked fighter at the time in Shane Burgos, and really, really close competitive fight. First round, Billy Q. Second round, Shane Burgos. Third round, Shane Burgos. It was close, but the bigger shots for Shane Burgos. And for Alexander Hernandez, you win some, you lose some. It's been a bumpy ride throughout, but his last time out, taking on Renato Moicano, got kind of bounced around on the feet, then he got submitted on the mat. But for Hernandez, a fresh start. He is 30. He's talked about making featherweight. He finally does it. Prince Vegeta's son saying Billy Q all day. Eldar saying, so the fans would watch the prelims.
True.
And D-Rod DeOne is still just spewing it. So Matt, in this one, I know you really like the fight. The volume definitely favors Billy Quarantillo, but the power favors Hernandez in this one.
It does. You just wonder how many power shots Hernandez himself can eat while he's trying to land his own big shot, because that's the thing for Hernandez. He has good footwork. I think he moves a little bit too much. He's one of those fighters who, he keeps on doing that like half circle, try to like half step Lomachenko style, but he's not that good of a striker to where he's throwing a lot of volume on those in-betweens. And the thing about Hernandez too is, it'd be great if he threw a kick, because at the 145-pound weight division, he's a guy who should be able to use his height and his distance a lot better. And if he was a much more heavy kicker, he'd be able to use that distance a lot more, I think.
Either guy. I mean, both guys have very low kick rates. Billy Q at 6.14 leg strikes per fight on
But
his
the thing
part.
about Hernandez is, he's the guy moving down in weight. Like, he had issues at 155 dealing with the physicality. So if you're moving down in weight, you probably want something that's going to work on that long distance. The thing that you should just naturally have an advantage at because you are the bigger guy in the weight class. And that's why I think this is a bit of a difficult matchup too. Billy Q, A, is a pretty big featherweight. Like, I don't think 145 pounds is easy for him to make whatsoever. I know he's not a thick guy by any means. Like, Alexander Hernandez is thick at the shoulders, whereas Billy Q's taller and kind of thin, but still, he is a big 145er. So I'll be curious to see if Hernandez will have a big physicality advantage. Because if these guys get into the clinch, Billy Q is looking for damage. He has good elbows there. He's got good dirty boxing there. But Hernandez is going to be looking for takedowns in that same position. So if Hernandez does have a big strength advantage, if he was able to rehydrate, look like the guy from 155, maybe he will be able to go in there and get a lot of offensive takedowns. And I think he's going to have to do that to be able to get the win, because I like the striking style of Billy Q on the feet. I like his ability to throw volume. And if he gets Hernandez hurt, Hernandez isn't a guy who recovers really well, who can go down and immediately get back up. He will stay rocked for a little bit, and with the style that Billy Q brings in, I think he can get him out of there if he does try to rush it.
Clay's tuned in late. Kieran is asking, do I remember Bryce Mitchell completely out-grappling Edson Barboza? You remember exactly that? Do you remember when he dropped Edson Barboza? Billy Q open minus 210, minus 170 right now. Alexander Hernandez open plus 180, plus 142 as it stands. And again, you look at both of these guys, they're primarily boxers, I would say. Depending on certain fights, they'll box. Depending on certain fights, they will wrestle. They are the quintessential MMA fighter.
Oh, yeah.
They would, if it was, who is it? Joe, why can't I think of his last name? My goodness. Joe Martinez, he would go, This man is a mixed martial artist.
He
Now,
would.
Bruce Buffer might play around with it a little bit more, but 71% of the fans at Fight Night Picks going with Billy Q to get the win. So a lot going with Billy Q. For me, again, 7.74 significant strikes per minute to what Alexander Hernandez is throwing in and around the fours. Like, it is a huge step up there from Billy Q. So I do like the volume. The one thing that does scare me, though, is does Billy Q go in there, throw a bit of a blitz and a flurry, and then just kind of wait for the receipt and get tagged by Hernandez?
Yeah.
But Hernandez is the type of guy, like, again, he's going to primarily throw that front hand out there, try and gain distance, then throw the big shot. There is a great opportunity here for, again, Alexander Hernandez. But for me, I do like Billy Quarantillo with the volume, with the fact that he has so much experience at 145. Again, for Hernandez, he's had 18 pro fights, and this is the first one at featherweight. We'll see if he's able to adjust well. And maybe, again, maybe he goes out there and knocks him out in the first round.
He could. And
It would be wild.
Like, for Alexander Hernandez, he does need another big marquee win on his resume at some point, because he's really been riding off that, hey, remember the guy who knocked out Benil Dariush? So at a certain point, he is going to have to beat another one of these top tier guys. Not that I think Billy Q is a world beater at 145 by any means, but I still think he's a decent fighter in this weight class.
All right, Matt. So we'll move on to the next fight. Chris Curtis taking on Joaquin Buckley. And this fight, Matt, if it has anything going for it, it's the fact that, A, it could be a fight of the night.
Could.
You could end up with a performance bonus, but there's a pretty good case that the winner out of this matchup will have a number next to their name. It's like fighter 16 fighting fighter 17. And if you look at it for Buckley's last time out, lose to Nasruddin Imavov, who's really doing things in this division. And for Chris Curtis, losing to Jack Hermanson, who was ranked as recently as 8th, until he ended up losing to Roman Dolidze. So for both of these guys on the outside looking in, but they definitely have a pretty darn good opportunity in this fight against one another. Buckley with his blitzes, Chris Curtis with his counters, and if Curtis is maybe able to implement that kind of like back pocket sauce that he has going for him, the little bit of the wrestling that you haven't seen in the UFC, but we've seen throughout his career, that could be a difference maker in a matchup like this against Joaquin Buckley.
It could, but I think if we see Chris Curtis use his wrestling, it's because something bad is going for him on the feet. I just don't know if he's going to want to try to waste a lot of his energy going for wrestling on a guy like Joaquin Buckley, because what's the thing that we both give Buckley a lot of credit for? He can carry his power pretty late into a fight. He's not a knockout artist who needs the first 5 minutes to go out there and really hit you with that big shot. So let's say Curtis does waste a lot of energy wrestling early on. Maybe Buckley can knock him out in the third.
You gotta hit up the super chat. I'm going Kerr with the super chat. Buckley versus Curtis or Topuria versus Mitchell for fight of the night. Good luck, everybody. Let's get into it. I do agree with you. I mean, Joaquin Buckley's shown a propensity to come on strong later on in his fights when his fighting style doesn't really kind of maybe exemplify that.
Yeah, you don't look at some like huge fighter in this division who utilizes a peekaboo style and wings hooks to have really good longevity in the division, but I do expect the fight, if it does go late, I guess I'll take back what I was about to say. Chris Curtis has two versions of himself. If he's aggressive, I could see him throwing the shorter, cleaner shots and knocking out or at least hurting Joaquin Buckley very early in this fight. But if we see the laid-back, tentative version that we saw, even his last two fights, I know he beat Adolfo Vieira, but still, he wasn't really going out there trying to take the fight from Adolfo. It was a lot of defended takedowns and hurting him while he was shooting for some more. I do think Buckley can be the more damaging of the two, and that's why I do have him in this matchup. And I think he has a size advantage too. We're going to talk about another fight later on where I do think one of the fighters could have a size advantage. Joaquin Buckley's thick AF.
Did you have Joaquin Buckley at the start of the week?
Yeah.
I don't believe you did. Maybe you did.
I'm almost certain I had Joaquin Buckley at the start of the week. I just think his knockout power is a little bit more than Chris Curtis's. Is Chris Curtis the cleaner fighter? Yes, he is, without a doubt. I think he can get from point A to point B a little bit faster. Again, straight shots are always better than looping shots. I just think in this case, with Joaquin Buckley having the type of punching power that he does, having the ability to knock guys out late, I do slightly like him in this fight, but it's a really close one.
Matt, I mean, you do look at the odds. Buckley is the favorite. Open up around a minus 125. He's a minus 170 right now. Chris Curtis opened up as the underdog, plus 105, plus 140. So again, it's one of those ones you get to buy low, sell high with both of these guys, and 53% at Fight Night Picks going with Chris Curtis to get the win. Christopher Cruz saying Curtis is going to get the win over Buckley. John Choi, Buckley's 28 years old, youth. Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, for me,
35.
Again, I do like Chris Curtis, especially when you're on when you're trying to close that range. He really has been able to dust up a lot of his opponents at the UFC level. I mean, you can't forget about it. Phil Haas, Brendan Allen was able to take the back. Curtis was able to shrug him off and then just start to land with his own shots. And if you look at a guy like Brendan Allen, big size advantage over Chris Curtis. He utilizes kicks a little bit more than Joaquin Buckley. So for me, I do like Chris Curtis in the matchup, especially as an underdog. I feel like it's a pretty good spot right there, but we'll see how it goes. Sam Cardinia goes Sean. It's pre-recorded. Sam,
What's up, Craig?
Yeah, it's the way she goes. This chat today, my word. We'll move into the next fight, Matt. And, Edmen Shahbazyan's taking on Dalcha Lungiambula. I'd like to hear what people are thinking in this matchup. Linny is just hot and horned up over there in the chat today. But when we do look at this one, Matt, for Edmen Shahbazyan, Dalcha Lungiambula, I saw it in the comments section this week. People saying, like, Edmen, he's younger, he's hungrier, he's fighting for a spot. Dalcha Lungiambula is 10 years older, and they're both on 3-fight losing streaks. The loser is going home. It's Mr. Perfect versus Ric Flair, Raw, 1993.
Here's the thing, though. The level of opposition that Edmen has fought during his losing streak is far better than Dalcha's. And he is the much younger guy in his career, and that's why I give him credit for maybe being able to add something new to his game. The thing about Edmen is he is good enough at wrestling. I know he might panic wrestle sometimes if he is getting lit up on the feet. We saw that a lot in the Darren Stewart matchup. But if he is that explosive striker that we have seen in flashes throughout his UFC career, I think he's a lot more accurate than Dalcha, especially on the feet. And the thing about Edmen is, he does have pretty good wrestling defense. I know we saw Derek Brunson really take advantage of that, but you can't forget that Derek Brunson is one of the best wrestlers in this division. Like, we're going to talk about Darren Till in a little bit, and guess what Derek Brunson did to him? Completely took the fight out of him, hit him with a lot of ground and pound.
Louis Bond hitting up the super chat, loves his singing. Are you going to go with Alanis Morissette on the show?
Probably not.
Okay.
But we'll get to that Biggie Boy fight in a second. I just think a lot of people have just completely written off Edmen Shahbazyan, and you can't discredit those people because, like you said, he's on a 3-fight losing streak. That's not a great look. I still think there's a fighter in there that can get back to like a 50-50 run in the UFC if it will. Maybe he won't have a crazy high ceiling, get back to the rankings, but I don't think Edmen's going to be cut from the UFC in the next 6-8 months, so I do think he'll win this matchup.
Well, when you do look at this one, Dalcha for previous camps before his last couple, going with Brandon Moreno. Oh, Alex Morono, sorry, to get the upset. Let's get into it over there from Sean Glenn in the Super Chat. Thank you so much, Sean Glenn. Thanks to everybody who's hit up the Super Chat so far. And that one's free. But when you look at this matchup, Matt, Dalcha for a few camps, not that long ago, it was before the Marc-Andre Barriault fight, he was training out of Extreme Couture, and he was training with Dewey Cooper as well, Black Cobra Striking Systems. Edmen's been at Extreme Couture for some time, and it was mentioned there by Clay, kind of breaking away from Edmen Tarverdian, the Ronda Rousey camp.
Sure.
And so for Edmen, I'm eager to see what we're going to get. Will he go out there for the wrestling as we've seen from him in the past? Honestly, I kind of hope not, because the wrestling's it's been a double-edged sword. It's kryptonite. Works great in the first round, but if Edmen doesn't get a finish in the first round, it gets really, really ugly. We've seen the losses in the UFC happen in the second round. We've also seen him win that split decision. That's his only decision win against Darren Stewart, where what happened? He got tired from a lot of the wrestling exchanges with Stewart, and Stewart no longer in the UFC. It's been a time or two. So we look at the odds in the matchup. Edmen is a pretty big favorite. Feels like a bit of a trap card in a sense, but open minus 450, minus 318. Dalcha Lungiambula, open plus 350, now at a plus 255. We have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes on this one. Drum roll, please. 77% going with Shahbazyan to get the win, 23% for Lungiambula. For me, it's the hand speed out of Edmen, but we did see out of Dalcha not that long ago the fight against Cody Brundage where he just put the pedal to the metal at the start and nearly got the finish until he just made one slip up.
I think Edmen's a lot better than Cody Brundage, though, if I'm being honest. That's why I like Edmen in this matchup.
All right, Matt going with Edmen. I'm going with Edmen as well. Our next fight, Matt, Jair Rozenstruik, as Panini would put on their cards. We have Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Chris Daukaus. Both guys successfully making heavyweight. You love to see it, Matt. I mean, listen, sometimes it doesn't happen. But for Jairzinho Rozenstruik, 261.5. For Daukaus, 242.5. Just slightly above and slightly below where they were their last times out making weight. For Daukaus, his brother got put on a poster, unfortunately, last weekend.
I love that.
For Jairzinho Rozenstruik, I don't know if he has siblings. And if they fight, I also don't know that in Suriname. But when you look at this one, just my 2 cents saying Rozenstruik by knockout, Prince Vegeta's son. Daukaus looks like heavyweight Hank Hill.
I have Rozenstruik in this fight, but I have no confidence he's going to actually move forward and throw damaging strikes. That's the open problem in this fight. Like, Jairzinho, is he more technical than Chris Daukaus? Well, probably. He throws kicks. He throws them to all 3 levels, which is a rare thing in the heavyweight division. There's not a lot of guys who weigh borderline 300 pounds who can head kick other people.
Just Derek Lewis is probably the only other one.
Derek Lewis and Jairzinho Rozenstruik can somehow get his foot up that high, but I do think his ability to use that long range is going to be really important in this fight because Chris Daukaus has good short range boxing. He is a fast striker. He has good hand speed. And he does have good pop in his shots, too. I know we don't talk about Chris Daukaus as a big heavyweight because he's not a big heavyweight. He even said in an interview this week, I forget who it was with, I apologize, but it was, hey, I could fight at 205. Like, I don't want to, but, like, if I desperately needed to make that move to save my career, I could probably make that weight class. Jairzinho Rozenstruik would have to cut off both his legs to make 205. He's just such a big heavyweight that's never really something that would be in the future for him. And that's why I do think Chris Daukaus, and this is a risky way to fight this fight, you're going to have to move forward on Jairzinho to make him uncomfortable. Because if Jairzinho's the guy moving forward, dictating the dance, we all know how good he is when he's throwing in combination moving forward. He is a bit of a limited fighter, though, on the back foot. I know we saw him hit Andrei Arlovski with that check left hook, but Andrei Arlovski can't eat that much punishment at this stage of his career. So I think this is a really fun fight that could go either way. It's a very volatile matchup, but I do like Biggie Boy just because I do think he's a little bit more technical.
Well, and JD's saying his Suriname a country. It's in South Africa. That's where it's found.
South America, I thought.
South America? What did I just say?
South Africa.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say South Africa. South Africa, Trika Stu, Plessy, Cameron, Saaiman, South America is where that country is found, and Sam is also helping out there. And if we go back down through the comments a little bit, I mean, Clay, if Rozenstruik can't beat Daukaus decisively, he should retire. There, I said it. I mean, he is already 34 years old, and you can age gracefully in this division. Athleticism, though, it's one of those things that doesn't really stick around all that well.
I think Biggie Boy can fight till he's 40.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. P-Man, why do you stop posting your records? P-Man's been trying to just shoot us down in the comment section. Hey, buddy. They're down below in the description. They're there every single week. They're in our Instagram story. They're in our YouTube community tab. Guys, we're as open and transparent with those records as we possibly can be. They're always out there, whether they're good or they're not, because you can't really hide from stuff like that. But Matt, when you do look at the odds in this matchup, I'm assuming that Rozenstruik's still the favorite. He is open minus 160. When as far down as minus 185, he's minus 175. And for Chris Daukaus, we have a look at him. Open plus 140, up to plus 155 or thereabouts. He's a plus 145. Really eager to see the fan vote on this one at Fight Night Picks. 79% going with Biggie Boy to get the win. But that's the problem when you look at this fight. Biggie Boy, it's just a matter of can he get it going. We all remember the highlight reel knockout that he got in the dying seconds against Alistair Overeem. Yeah. But go back and watch the first 4 rounds and 4 minutes and 45 seconds of the 5th one. Biggie Boy has to, have a willing and capable dance partner, and he has to flip that switch. Hopefully the continued training at American Top Team with his coach out of Suriname really does work out for him. But Chris Daukaus is one of those guys that will bring the fight to you. And for Daukaus, sometimes he gets hit by a couple of checks, and then he starts to back off, and he waits a distance. I could honestly see this fight being quite boring because both guys are in the same spot where they really, really need a win to continue some relevancy in this division.
I'm going to disagree, just because I think for Chris Daukaus, for him to have success, he's going to have to close the distance. If he does, that's going to result in a fun fight, I think. I still think he has any answer on the outside to what Jairzinho does. He can't kick. He's a good grappler, but he's not some dominant wrestler like Curtis Blades where he can go to that well. And Jairzinho can defend takedowns. He's not a great grappler by any means, but he has a really high-level takedown defense. If he's able to dig the underhooks, he's a very strong fighter. So I disagree. I think this will be a fun fight. If it'll be like any heavyweight fight, I guess. If it ends in the first round, it's going to be crazy back and forth, but if it goes past that first round, then yes, we might see a very tentative fight.
To me, I don't expect Pavlovich to Ivasa, but that one was fun and tough to replicate. Jay Perrin made weight, shaved that hair. Raul Rosas Jr. also made weight for Rosas Jr. UFC debut.
He looked huge.
These guys don't seem to like each other.
They don't, but that was the fight this is the fight that I was referencing early. I thought Rosas Jr. looked much bigger than Jay Perrin at the face-offs.
Yeah, he really did. And for Jay Perrin, again, all of the interviews with some of the smaller channels, I mean, he's probably waking up listening to just new metal from the early 2000s.
Are you not embarrassed though talking shit to an 18-year-old?
I mean, you gotta.
I guess you gotta, but we see Jan Blachowicz and Ankalaev don't say anything to each other. They're like, hey, we have a job to do. It is what it is. Jay Perrin's waking up every day I hate a teenager. That's kind of weird looking in the mirror with that kind of energy every morning. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, you look at it this way. For Jay Perrin, he looked great in the 3rd round of his last fight against Arichi Long. First round was kind of close. Second round, if you look at that fight, he thought he had a pretty good claim to win it. Lost it, all 3 judges' scorecards, 29-28. He didn't look great in a 4 days notice UFC debut against Mario Bautista. Nobody is. You could put us in one of those trench coats top to bottom and then split us up and we could go tag team against Mario Bautista. and he would knock us both out in the first round. So if you look at it for Jay Perrin, he didn't have a great time out there the first time, took a little bit of punishment, but if you know Jay Perrin, former Cage Titans bantamweight champ, former CS bantamweight champ, he fought a good level competition on the regional scene, and that's what made him into the fighter that he is now. I know it's 10-6 is the record, but he's one of those battle-hardened type of guys, and if you look at it for Rosas Jr., he didn't fight anybody in Mexico.
No.
He fought guys with negative records that would just accept the fight.
To be fair, he was 16 years old.
16, well, he's 17. But if you do look at it for Rosas Jr., he looked good on Dana White's Contender Series, and he checked some of those boxes that you might have had, some of those questions that you might have had, all the first-round finishes on the regional scene. He fought Mando Gutierrez, who liked to just pull guillotine in those fights, but Rosas Jr. showed that he had a pretty good gas tank for 3 rounds, which was a big question that we had, having just those one-round fights.
Exactly. That's a huge question mark that you're going to talk about a fighter when they do have a lot of first-round stoppages, because it is great that you're knocking everybody out in the first round, but we're old enough to remember one of the great heavyweight contenders of all time, Shane Carwin. He knocked everybody dead in 30 seconds, and that's great. Everybody likes watching it. But the problem was, nobody knew what he was going to look like after he went those first 5 minutes. Brock Lesnar was able to withstand that big storm, and then Shane Carwin had nothing left after those opening 5 minutes. So it was nice to see that Rosas Jr., for being a big physical guy that he is for this weight class, does have some kind of longevity to his game.
Well, I'm Wayne Kerr hitting up the Super Chat. Big shout out to Rosas Jr., youngest fighter to ever enter the UFC as Mexican. Let's go. And you saw him with a lot of flash and flair at those ceremonial weigh-ins, as you were kind of alluding to.
They did, and that's the thing. Jay Perrin screaming at a teenager. If you're Rosas Jr.'s parents, is he old enough that you're mad, or you're like, hey, he'll be fine?
Comes with the territory.
It's just very strange to me. I found that all very funny. I just think with Rosas Jr., again, I like his grappling style. He can go for submissions. He is a good enough wrestler to where I think he can get this fight to the mat multiple times, and that's the thing for Rosas Jr. Let's say he gets a takedown with 4 minutes left in the round. I think he can hold that position for a long time due to the size advantage that he does have, and due to his good technique, too, with his grappling. So that's why I like Rosas Jr. in the matchup.
P-Man with an about face hitting up the Super Chat. I don't know what to make of that one. So it's something. I roll reversal. But you look at the odds in this one. Rosas Jr. minus 245 or thereabouts. You got a plus 200 in Jay Perrin. We have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes. And in this one, I don't know why they decided to go out of order. 81% going with Rosas Jr. to get the win over Perrin. If you do look at this one, if Perrin's able to kind of withstand a few of those takedown attempts, keep the fight standing, Perrin's a much better striker. Rosas is going to kind of wing a lot of shots from distance to try and close it, to then go for a double leg to keep you on the mat. I think that Rosas Jr. is going to be able to do it. Again, I did like the gas tank that I saw, but for Perrin, what's John Anik going to say about him? What's that one thing he's going to say? His grandfather's in the Massachusetts Boxing Hall of Fame. His grandfather trained Irish Mickey Ward. You know he's going to say that. John Anik, he loves tossing the Boston things in there.
He does. We can just pat. John Anik loves to throw in weird stuff every now and then that no one needs to know.
He's going through an intense custody battle.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Hey, John, I don't need to know what this guy's relationship with his kids are.
Wow, that's just the way she goes. Matt, Bryce Mitchell is taking on Ilia Topuria. Make sure you let us know over there in the chat.
Did you have Jay Perrin in that previous one?
No, I have Rosas Jr.
Oh, my bad, sorry.
So in this one, Bryce Mitchell taking on Ilia Topuria. And again, one of these guys made a pre-fight press conference thumbnail with another person that's on this card, and the other guy didn't. And it feels like Bryce Mitchell has gotten none of the attention this week from the fans, from the YouTube videos, from anything, really.
You worry that Ilia might be looking past Bryce a little bit, or at least I do, because for Ilia Topuria, every single thing that he has mentioned this week is Paddy Pimblett oriented and has nothing to do with Bryce Mitchell. And I don't think that means that he wasn't training hard for Bryce Mitchell, nothing like that, but still, you don't love that he's about to be in by far the most difficult fight of his life, and I don't even think it's like, I don't even think there's a close argument to that. You're going from fighting Jai Herbert, who is a technical striker, a talented striker.
That's what he is.
But Jai Herbert is not nearly the mixed martial artist that a guy like Bryce Mitchell is. So, and let's be honest, Topuria faced some adversity in that fight too. He got head kicked, almost got flatlined. Now, to be fair, he came back and scored a beautiful knockout of his own. But still, for Ilia, you would like him to be a little bit more focused on the challenge that is at hand. But I think, and I've said this all week, this is as good of a fight as any on the card because you have 2 undefeated contenders.
And there's a great question over there in the chat from Mark Downs. How is Bryce's striking compared to Topuria's? If you look at it for Bryce Mitchell, you know him for the takedowns, the twister attempts that he had against Charles Rosa, the twister that he got against, just a guy who just could not get it going down. But if you do look at it for Bryce Mitchell, I mean, he did, lose a fight that was on The Ultimate Fighter. Not that it really matters right now, but in the UFC, beats Bobby Moffett, beats Matt Sales. That was the twister. He got the win over Rosa, win over Andre Fili, and the win over Edson Barboza. But again, if we're trying to answer your question, Bryce Mitchell was able to drop with a really tighty, it was a right, and then he landed that left straight that dropped Barboza to the canvas, and then he's able to get on top of him. For Topuria, he doesn't really strike from distance like a guy like Barboza. He closed that gap, boxes you in, and oh boy, go watch his fight against Damon Jackson if you want the example.
I would still say, though, Ilia Topuria is a more long-distance striker than Bryce Mitchell.
The super chat's over there, so we got to hit them up. Food recipes, good work, guys, in-depth study. What do you guys think? I got Action Man, Thug Nasty, Duplessis, Flash Gordon. I'm not helping anybody out with their parlays. I'm sorry, food recipes.
Flash Gordon is a tough fight. Like, Paddy Pimblett's a really good prospect.
There was another super chat. P-Man, apologies. The whiskey's tough. We both kill it, so thank you, P-Man. And I'm a Wayne Kerr. I'm not answering that one. I don't know.
This is a super, again, I think this is a great fight because it's one of those fights where if Bryce Mitchell wins this, he's fighting Calvin Kattar next, he's fighting an Ortega coming off injury next. It's one of those really big names in the featherweight division. Same thing for Topuria. The loser's then going to have to fight a really difficult fighter because that's the thing about guys in the featherweight division. Even if you're not ranked, you're going to offer as much of a challenge as most ranked fighters do in other divisions.
And with both of these guys in this division, you look at it for Bryce Mitchell. I mean, to me, and this is kind of where I went with the pick. For Bryce Mitchell, what does he have over Topuria? He has a gas tank. We know that. But I did like Topuria the last time where he almost got finished by Jai Herbert. Came right back in the second round, looked great, but I would still favor Bryce Mitchell's gas tank. The kid has a motor, as they would say.
He does.
Dana White would say that, and then he'd have Cheeto pancakes.
And the thing about it, too, is it's not a motor that, he doesn't do a lot. Like, Bryce Mitchell grapples like Max Holloway strikes. He is always doing something. He's a very active guy, and it's a very aesthetically pleasing style of grappling. Like, you don't watch Bryce Mitchell and think, wow, he's a lay and pray kind of a guy.
And his striking is efficient, but for Ilia Topuria, he's definitely going to pepper in a lot more of those power shots. He doesn't tend to whiff on air, though, like some of these guys that just rely on their strikes. But for Topuria, the thing that everybody has to remember is he also has a lights-out grappling ground game. If you look at it, even back to when he was fighting with Cage Warriors, Brian Bula on the fight that he was supposed to have at bantamweight, but he missed the bantamweight limit.
They said that about Charles Rosa, though.
For the title, yeah, but he actually does use it. But if you look at it for Topuria, the highlights that they're going to show you, the Ryan Hall fight, the fight against Damon Jackson, the fight that he had against Jai Herbert. We have a look at the odds in this one. Seems like people are kind of split over there in the chat. I think that's fair to say. If you look at it, for some reason, they're still kind of out and about there on best fight odds. So we'll say that Topuria is slight favorite, minus 145. Mitchell, plus 125 as the underdog. At Fight Night Picks for the total votes on this one. Again, people are split 56% Mitchell, 44% Topuria.
I just think the pace that Bryce Mitchell puts is going to be really difficult for Topuria to deal with. I think if Topuria is going to have success, he's going to have to be the one moving forward with his own boxing combinations. And if that's the case, he's probably going to be walking into a lot of takedown attempts from Bryce Mitchell. And if he's on the back foot, I think it might be difficult for him to deal with some of the pressure of Mitchell because for Topuria, he does need space to land his boxing combinations. There are not a lot of these tight shots like Dustin Poirier. It's a lot of overhands. It's a lot of long hooks. So I think for Topuria, he has a great chance to win if he's able to keep this on the feet. I like his striking a lot more in this matchup, but I just think for Bryce Mitchell, he's going to be able to make this a much uglier fight, and that's why I like him.
Kyle the Doc, what's my favorite Helen Hunt movie? It's Twister. Bill Paxton was in that movie.
I never watched Twister.
You never watched Twister. That's the handoff. For me, I'm going with Ilia Topuria. I really do like the hands. I really do think he can pose problems, but in this one, if I'm looking at the variables, Bryce Mitchell's a sexy underdog.
But this is where we do. I think Bryce Mitchell's going to have more success in the grappling, a lot of success in the grappling. I think if he gets on top of Topuria won't be able to get back up to his feet. That's the level that I think Mitchell's at.
I think that's going to be on Cold Takes Exposed.
That's fine, but again, Charles Rosa is a really good grappler. Everybody just brings up about how good of a black belt he is. Bryce Mitchell made it look like he had never grappled before in his life.
Yikes. Matt, the next fight we have Darren Till taking on Dricus du Plessis. I think this was the most popular single video that we had out there on the channel. A lot of people rallying around this one. A lot of people rallying around Darren Till. Is he Bang Tao Muay Thai Tiger Muay Thai ready? We're going to find out. Did he kind of pencil out the lady that was on his arm with the gorilla?
Ugh. Now the gorilla has a weird hairstyle.
Yeah, it's not a good one. But when you do look at this fight, Matt, for Darren Till, he finally gets an opponent that's not going to go out there and just wrestle his socks off and try and submit it. Dricus du Plessis can do that, but but that's not the focal point of his game. Fredrikas, last time out against Brad Tavares, took on a guy that was willing to go strike for strike, and boy, did he come out on the winning end of that fight. So, Matt, both of these guys, Till obviously on the worst swing of his career. He's 1-4 in his last 5, and look at it overall. 18-4 with a draw. That draw against Nicholas Dalby at 170 pounds. Till's had a rough go, but he gets an opportunity against a willing dance partner. I like Duplessis for the variety of shots that he throws, the blitzes, and he is a guy that throws so much volume. I think that can cause Till a problem with some of his setups, but I'd like to get your thoughts on this one.
I 100% agree with you. The only issue is, the one weakness Duplessis has in his game is, he's throwing a lot at you. And when he's throwing a lot at you, there are some wide openings for a really talented counter-striker to catch him. What does Darren Till just so happen to be an expert at? He is great at moving on the back foot with his straight shots. We know the elbows he's able to land on the inside. We know the straight shots from the outside, and that does leave Darren Till a good chance to get a stoppage win. I know that's a wild thing to say, especially at 185 pounds against a surging contender in Dricus Duplessis, but the way that Duplessis strikes is going to leave that one big counter shot for Darren Till open. The problem I have with picking Darren Till in a matchup like this is, where's the volume going to be? Let's say he isn't able to knock out Duplessis. He could probably hurt him, and I do expect that at some point in this fight. Even Brad Tavares was able to wobble Dricus on a couple of occasions because he will get a little overexcited and start throwing a lot at you, and in those in-betweens, Brad Tavares is able to hit him with some good shots. I just don't know if Till has enough outside of the big power shots for him to get enough points on the scorecard.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle over there is saying Till is the only striker to beat Wonder Boy. That was a chintzy win right
It was
there.
a close fight, yeah.
That was a really close fight. Prince Vegeta-san saying the South African guy was freaking shredded. One of them fit the bill, I guess, Cameron Saaiman.
I gotta be honest. Here's the weird thing about Darren Till, just you saying Dricus Duplessis looks shredded. Darren Till doesn't look the same at all physically that he did. They did this like before and after picture of him at 170 and him at 185. It could just be a picture of how he's standing, but it could be. I'm just saying, for the sake of bringing it up, we have to. His posture looks worse. Like, he looks thicker, but not in a good way. Like, when Robert Whittaker moved from 170 to 185, he didn't get bigger. Like, he just gained muscle, and now he looks like a big 185er. Darren Till, I wonder if he's put on the right kind of weight being at 185.
Well, if you do have a look at the odds in the matchup, Duplessis is the favorite. It feels like, again, one of those trap cards, because Duplessis loves to rush in, keep his chin really high as he rushes in, and Darren Till, it just takes one counter right hook, and then you're done. But you do have Duplessis minus 175 or thereabouts. Darren Till, the comeback, plus 150. And if we have a look at Fight Night picks for the total votes on this one, 51% Duplessis, 49% Darren Till. Yeah, it surprised you?
A little bit. I thought a lot of people would be more down on Darren Till now. Like, Darren Till to me, right now he's like Laurie Markkinen before the season. I've sold all my stock on him. Maybe he won't be good. Maybe he can shock me and look really good in this matchup. I just don't think this is a good warm-up fight for Darren Till. Like, if you want Till to get a good win at 185 and get back, maybe give him like a Brad Tavares or a Marc-Andre Barrios type guy. Like, I don't think fighting a really heavy power puncher who has good volume and a really good chin is the best way to get Darren Till back on track.
No, Darren Till, Bruno Silva, you'd be down for that?
That would be a fun fight. Like, Bruno Silva before the Gerald Meerschaert fight may have been a tough matchup for Till, but knowing what we know now, that would be a fun one.
All right, Matt. So both of us going with Dricus Duplessis in the matchup. Drew, I'm buying Till stock until I'm broke. I mean, you're in a hole right now if you've gone with a 1-4 run. But if you look at the next fight, Matt, Alex Morono's taking on Santiago Ponzinibbio. So many people in the comments section this week rallying around Alex Morono. The guy just gets it done on short notice. Now, this fight is at a catch weight of 180 pounds. You know why, Matt? Because they were scared. They were scared to fight in my guy's division. They didn't want that smoke. That CM Punk smoke. Wow. This guy owns that division. But if you do look at this fight, catchweight of 180 doesn't really do much for divisional relevance, but we did see catchweight fights actually at 180 matter in terms of divisional relevance when Daniel Rodriguez beat Li Jingliang. So an opportunity for both of these guys to make their case. Robbie Lawler out of the fight. Really love to hear what people are thinking, though, in this one. Prince Vegeta-san, let's go Punk. But there's people going with Ponzinibbio, there's people going with Alex Morono, and Clay is saying not a lot of people will step up to fight Ponzinibbio on a week's notice. I'm guessing no one else stepped forward. Probably not.
This is a weird fight, especially it being contested at 180 pounds, because I do think it is going to slightly favor Santiago Ponzinibbio, because I do think he'll be the naturally bigger guy in this matchup. Ponzinibbio, neither one of these guys, I should say, is a necessarily huge welterweight or a small welterweight, but I do think Ponzinibbio is going to have a size advantage. We saw that a little bit at the weigh-ins, too. Ponzinibbio doesn't have have a lot of fat on him. Like, he's a big muscular guy for the weight division. I think the kicks of Ponzinibbio are going to be important, though, because for Morono, he has a good volume striker. He likes to crash forward, and he has good footwork, too. But if Ponzinibbio is able to get his own jab going, get his leg kicks going, I think that's really going to stifle the movement of Alex Morono.
And Alex Morono is one of those guys, and we kind of touch on it, seems like every single week. Who is the best person at gauging distance on this entire card? And if you ask me, Alex Morono is one of those guys. He's in, he's out, he's side to side, and then he usually has like one fatal flaw mistake in every single fight where he gets cracked or he gets dropped. And his last time out was against Matt Semmelsberger, who's fighting next week. But for Morono, he ate that flying knee, that jumping switch knee. He was down like a sack of potatoes, and then one judge still scored that round for him, which is a little bit... It wasn't Douglas Crosby, but... When you do look at it for Morono, I like the presence of volume from the outside, especially against a guy like Ponzinibbio, who can sometimes wait and bait and try and set up his own shots. But if you do look at it for Ponzinibbio with those low kicks, he can really kind of lead the dance in that respect. He's a great guy with his lead foot position. And for Ponzinibbio, when he's walking guys down, he has a lot of success. Now, I did see it there from Timothy kind of mentioning the fact that Ponzinibbio is 36, though he is... But he did hang in there against Pereira and against Jeff Neal, who are guys that are ranked in this division, and not all that long ago.
Yes, Kyle the Doc, it is a Vinsanity jersey. This is a weird matchup because, again, Morono's a lot more durable than Robbie Lawler would have been at this stage of his career, but he throws a lot more volume, I think, at this stage of his career. So I can see a world where Morono looks good, can threaten with his wrestling, use his volume, and look really good against Ponzinibbio. But Alex Morono's there to be hit. Like, you don't need to bring a flashlight with you into the cage to find Alex Morono. And I do think he's going to be on the receiving end of a lot of the power shots of Santiago Ponzinibbio. And if that is the case, it's only a matter of time until he goes down from one. Ponzinibbio has really good long-distance strikes, too. And I think those are really going to play a part in this fight. But it should be a really fun fight. Like, the good thing about this matchup is, and the way that it is different than maybe a Li Jingliang versus Daniel Rodriguez is, those are borderline ranked fighters who are still trying to become ranked and move up the rankings. Ponzinibbio might be ranked or on the outside of the rankings, but I don't look at Ponzinibbio or Alex Morono as guys who are real players in the division. I think the winner of this just goes on and has another kind of action fight, and they're sort of in their own lane in that aspect, and that's why I like this matchup.
Yeah, the winner of this fight fights Phil Rowe, and that's going to be a fun fight.
Exactly.
And over there in the chat, Eldar is bringing something up. The Argentine Dagger sounds great. Listen, that video, people want that video of our nickname classification. So when there's the winter break there during the holidays, that is for sure going to be a video. And I have to figure out how those S tier lists work because I've watched
Pretty
some,
simple.
but they're kind of weird sometimes. 63% of the fans
S
going
is the best,
Ponzinibbio.
A is below.
Oh boy, I know. But Matt, when we do look at it, both of us going with Ponzinibbio in this one, and we move forward to the co-main event of the evening.
Do I look like Ryan Graves? I don't know who that is.
Ryan Graves plays for the New Jersey Devils.
I
Used
know.
to be a defenseman.
They say I have a doppelganger. Any resemblance?
Kind of, I guess.
I'll take it.
All right. When it comes to this fight, Matt, Paddy Pimblett's taking on Jared Gordon. You know, feelings aside from the week that was, like,
It was weird.
I'll keep them to myself. But when it comes to this fight, Paddy Pimblett, Jared Gordon. So the Gordon highlights are thrown out there. Quinones fight. I saw that in, like, the whole pantheon of
a Jared Gordon highlight reel is like a Tim Duncan highlight reel. It's just like bank shots, fundamentals. There's nothing that flashy. And don't mean to rag on him. Like, that's the good thing about Jared Gordon. He is very well-rounded. He has a great gas tank. He's one of those gritty fighters. But it's just funny when you say highlight reel. You don't think of him as being like a Yair Rodriguez.
No, and he did look good his last time out. Like, he looked really good against Leo Santos, my guy. But my guy's 43 now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough. I mean, if you do look at this one, you know how good Jared Gordon is with the fact that he can control guys for long periods of time on the mat. I know his fight against Joe Selecki might not have been the most fun fight to watch. I thought Selecki won at the end, but regardless, Jared Gordon could hang in those positions. Now,
100%.
Jordan Levitt on paper could have done that with Paddy Pimblett too, and Pimblett got the back pretty friggin' easy in that fight. So for me, when I look at this one, Gordon's, we said this at the start of the week, he's the more complete package out of all the fighters that Pimblett's fought so far in the UFC. I think Pimblett's just a little bit better in all of those areas, but you can make a case for Jared Gordon, and I'll listen to you.
You just really have to start asking yourself, who does Paddy Pimblett then fight afterwards? Because if you do beat Jared Gordon, he's one of these guys in that pile of names where, hey, you beat Gordon, it's no easy fights after that.
We said, like a Diego Fajeda is next, or Gregor Gillespie, or one of those hangers-on if they ever fight.
I think those would be good matchups. And Paddy Pimblett has earned that, I think, if he is able to beat a guy like Gordon, because Gordon has got a lot better with age. We don't often say this about fighters, but he's better now than he was when he fought Hakron Diaz.
Yeah, moving up to 155.
Exactly. It really has done wonders for his career. Honestly, the same thing should be said for Paddy Pimblett. Like, he was the champion at 145 in Cage Warriors, you have to remember. Came over to to the UFC. His weight cuts are well documented, just how extreme they are. So for Paddy Pimblett, he is another guy who fought at 145, can't really make that weight anymore, and is now fighting at 155. I just think, like you said, you thought that Paddy Pimblett was going to struggle. I thought, when I say you, I mean all of us. We all thought Paddy Pimblett was going to struggle a little bit against Levitt in some of those grappling exchanges. But the way that he was able to really weaponize his jiu-jitsu, and that's the thing about Pimblett, he's not a lay-and-pray guy. You do not need to worry about his control time at the end of the fight to figure out who's going to win a judge's score decision.
He's not Danny Sabatello.
No, he's going to get your back. He's going to threaten with chokes. He's going to threaten with a triangle to then try to sweep and get on top. He is a very active grappler in that respect, and that's why I think he's going to be difficult for a guy like Jared Gordon. Gordon is going to try to lay in that one position. I think the more time you give a guy like Pimblett to stay in that one position, you're just giving him more things to learn. You're giving him more touches, more time to learn what he's going to do next, and I like Pimblett for those reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, Jared Gordon, a little bit of power, not a bit of volume, good takedowns, great grappling when it does hit the mat for Pimblett. I do like the power, but again, Kazula Vargas rocked him, but Kazula's kind of like a brawler type, you know, out of those Tai Chi Palace. Remember when UFC was supposed to fight at Tai Chi Palace, and then the media found out about it, and then it went away? Dana got mad, but in this one, for Paddy Pimblett, he does have a great opportunity. He's a giant favorite. If you do have a look at Fight Night Picks for the total votes, Brandor, goodbye, Danny Sabatello. 85% going with Pimblett. So I have Pimblett, you have Pimblett, and then we move into our main event of the evening. Jan Blachowicz taking on Magomed Ankalaev. Somebody didn't like the fact that we said, like, the uncrowned champ is Ankalaev. But if everybody says it, and if he's on the way up, and he's just continued to beat every single person in front of him except for Paul Craig, then Magomed Ankalaev has a good shot at that. And for Jan Blachowicz, he's been there, he's done that, and we're going to find out. Can he be that old throwback? Can he come off the bench like Jared Dudley and just make it look interesting? Or Udonis Haslem,
He's so much better than those guys at this stage of his career, though.
Jan
Blachowicz is fighting for a title. Those guys get 1 minute a game. I think Jan Blachowicz is a really difficult test for Ankalaev, and this is why. You remember the Adesanya fight where Joe Rogan just wouldn't shut up about the feints of Adesanya? Rewatch that fight today, and he just, oh my goodness, Jan's biting on those feints. That's fine and dandy. I don't care if a guy bites on the feints if you can't get anything going after that.
Yeah, just before this, we watched the Corey Anderson fight, and it was, Jan's on the outside. Jan's not doing anything.
The thing about Jan is, he's pretty effing hard to hit clean on the outside. Like, really difficult to. He has a high guard, he checks leg kicks, he checks body kicks. He's a very cerebral fighter in that respect. Like in basketball, when you learn how to dribble, you look down at the ground when you dribble, and then you learn how to dribble with your eyes up, and it completely changes the sport. Jan Blachowicz is like a guy who knows how to dribble with his eyes up, because he can stay in the pocket with his eyes open, he stays composed, he doesn't panic or tense up and eat those big shots. Even remember how he knocked out Dominic Reyes? It was at really close range, he blocks, hits him with a 3-punch combo, everything's very tight and puts him down with those shots. I think we can all see a world where Jan Blachowicz goes out there, defends some kicks at long range from Ankalaev, gets it on the inside, and can utilize some of his boxing. Because if the ghost of Thiago Santos can drop Ankalaev, I definitely think Jan Blachowicz can at this stage of his career. I just wonder how many big shots Jan Blachowicz can still eat at this point. I know that it looked good against Rakic before Rakic went down with the injury, but we didn't really see that much out of Rakic in that matchup. And when Jan did start to eat those big shots from Glover, he was on the back foot a little bit, and he did start to panic. Again, now, Glover is a much different kind of fighter. He's going to get on top of you, really implement his ground and pound. I just think this fight's going to be maybe a little bit boring until it isn't, and that might be a bit of a stale view, but at a certain point, someone's going to have to open up with a shot.
Brandor hits the super chat, the popcorn, the whiskey, and diesel jeans, maybe. And JJ, these guys deserve more likes on this video. JJ, you hit the nail on the head. About 700 tuning in. It takes 2 seconds, but in this matchup for Ankalaev, we did see him get clipped in his fight against Volkan Oezdemir. If you remember back to the second round of that one, his fight against Thiago Santos, like, it was just, so bad. It wasn't one of the better ones that we've ever seen. But if you do look at it, super chat from Dan Hip, UFC might have low champ who train. Well, Dan, they continue to throw those guys out there. Nobody questions any of it. But again, I reel in those personal feelings and I just talk about these fights. Jan Blachowicz, Magomed Ankalaev. What I do like out of Ankalaev, the thing that is a lot different than some of these guys that Jan's fought in the past. It's those kicks from different angles and different ranges that Ankalaev can throw in there.
Adesanya can do that.
Yeah, but Adesanya can't defend takedowns at 205 pounds. Ankalaev can, but for me, it's the front kicks. William LeBanner with the super chat. That's much appreciated over there. But if you do look at it, Kovath saying Ankalaev trains at Vegas Extreme Couture. Yeah, for the graphic he does, but outside of that, he's training back home. But when it comes down to this one, Matt, for Blachowicz, for Magomed Ankalaev, I do expect a high work rate out of Blachowicz early.
It would be nice to see.
And then you get to see a little bit of those counters and a little bit of those things that out of Ankalaev that you did see in his fight, like the first one they had against Koslow.
I think you'd agree. It would be nice to see him face the same kind of adversity he did against Thiago Santos, but against a guy like Jan Blachowicz, because that version of Santos, even though he hurt Ankalaev, wasn't really able to get a lot going after that initial strike. If Jan hurts you, I don't care if he's 45 years old, he can still throw in combination and land accurate combinations at this stage of his career, and he's a dangerous guy when he gets you hurt in that cage, and that's why I think he is a very difficult test for a guy like Ankalaev. I still think Magomed Ankalaev is going to win this fight. He himself can threaten with the wrestling, and I think that is an important thing. Blachowicz is a great offensive grappler, and he gets on top of you, he can submit you. Go watch the fight against Nikita Krylov, he has good ground and pound. Watch the fight against Adesanya. Like, you see the parts of his grappling package in a lot of his different fights. The thing is, though, defensively, he does struggle when he is flat on his back, and a guy like Ankalaev might be able to just get him down, sit in his full guard, land a few ground and pound strikes, and just win around that way.
And I don't see Blachowicz having that same type of success against a guy like Ankalaev.
No.
You know, threatening with his own grappling game. So we'll see how it goes. But listen, 700 tuning in so far. If we get 200 likes, I'll rock the CM Punk shirt. I'll pop the hoodie off, and we'll flip back down through this entire card. Cameron Saaiman make his UFC debut against a short notice replacement in Steven Koslow, who's a big underdog in the matchup. I have Koslow, love the jiu-jitsu, but again, if Saaiman goes out there like Francis Marshall did just, a week ago or so, or 2 weeks ago, against Marcelo Rojo, he's got a great shot. I'd like to see it. So for me, I'm going with Koslow, but you have Saaiman.
I do, yeah. Should be a fun fight, though, to open the prelims.
All right, we go into the next one. TJ Brown, Erik Silva. Again, one that could be a trap card, but I do like Erik Silva in this matchup.
I also like Erik Silva, but again, hard to look good against TJ Brown.
It is. Billy Quarantillo, Alexander Hernandez.
All action.
I have Quarantillo. You've got William with the super chat. Yes, that is true.
He did in Ontario and Alberta, but it's back in Alberta.
It is. That's news. I didn't know that. When did that happen?
This morning.
Oh. Well, yeah. I've been doing other things. Other things.
Just let me know.
Getting ready for, actually, this is what I've been doing. Getting ready for this! The full card previews for, you've got Cannonier taking on Sean Strickland. So getting those graphics ready. And then I'm actually going to do the tape study when this card's on. So we actually don't have a sidekick coming up tonight. And that's the reason why. We're going to be getting ready. And then tomorrow we're going to hopefully tape the videos, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. And then, they should be out by Sunday. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Tomorrow is Sunday.
The videos should be out on Sunday is what I said. Quarantillo, Hernandez. It does feel tough, but I do have Quarantillo in this one.
I also have Quarantillo. It should be a really fun fight, though. But this is a big test for Hernandez, because if this doesn't work out, him moving down in weight, you wonder what's next.
All right, so the next one, we have Curtis versus Buckley. I'm going with Curtis, but you have Buckley in this one.
I do. I just think his power punching could last a little bit later in this fight. So even if it is a low volume affair, I still favor Buckley if the fight does go late.
All right, so the next one, we have Shahbazyan versus Lungiambula. Both of us going with Edmen. Couple guys on 3-fight losing streaks. You hate it.
Exactly. This is a very important fight for both guys, but I also have Shahbazyan.
Going with the younger fella there. Rozenstruik versus Daukaus. Not going with the younger fella in this one.
6 months ago, this could have headlined a fight night card. Isn't that wild? Like, just how crazy the sport changes and how fast everything changes. Because these guys were both, like, headlining level fighters at a certain point, and it wasn't really that long ago, but I do have Biggie Boy.
Yeah, like, in their last fights. It's kind of crazy. Daukaus, his last 2 fights, both losses, both main events. So, Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades, both going with Rozenstruik. Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Jay Perrin, and going with Raul Rosas Jr. to get that first UFC win.
I do. He has a big size advantage, and I think with his wrestling and with his grappling style, his size advantage is going to really matter in this fight, and that's why I like Rosas Jr.
All right, the next one, Mitchell versus Topuria. Going with Topuria. Again, I threw up so many red flags in the video at the start of the week that it almost made me want to switch my pick, but that hasn't worked for me, so I'm sticking with Topuria. I
like the pace of Bryce Mitchell. Again, this is my big thing on this fight. I think Ilia Topuria is really good. Just because I'm picking Bryce Mitchell doesn't mean that I'm trying to discredit Topuria in any ways. And I know Edson Barbosa is not necessarily in his prime at this stage of his career. If you know how to fight Edson Barbosa, though, it's a pretty good precursor for fighting a guy like Ilia Topuria. He is a really good defensive grappler. He can scramble. He's really dangerous on the feet. That's why I like Bryce Mitchell.
I think you're underrating Topuria's grappling game.
No, and I might be, but that's my thing. I've seen Bryce Mitchell grapple guys in the UFC who are black belts, and he's looked really good.
Malone Hart with another giant super chat. Thanks, guys. We all appreciate the work y'all do to get us informed. Much appreciated, Malone Hart, hitting up the super chat. The MVP of the show. We got a few of these left. Till versus Duplessis, going with Duplessis in this one.
I also have Duplessis, but again, we've both given a lot of reasons for why Darren Till can land that one big counter shot.
Morono versus Ponzinibbio, going with Ponzinibbio.
It's going to be a great fight, too, and I also have Ponzinibbio.
Pimblett versus Gordon, going Pimblett.
I have Pimblett. Weird fight.
Yeah, it really is a weird fight. And then in the main event, and new, but not and again, going with Magomed Ankalaev in this one.
You hope it's a tough fight. You hope Jan Blachowicz can really test Ankalaev, because when you get a new champion, it's always fun, right? They haven't fought a lot of the other top fighters in the division, and Ankalaev still has a lot of guys in this division that he's yet to fight. I know the Jamal Hill fight's one in the future that a lot of people are kind of looking forward to. I think if Ankalaev is able to get over this hump, like we said, you already kind of know the next 2, 3, 4 fights ahead for him. Probably fighting Glover next. Then you'd have to imagine Yuri after that if he's able to get past Glover, and then by that time, maybe a guy like Jamal Hill
Maybe
has worked his way.
Rakic is back from injury.
Exactly, that's a good point too. You forget about Rakic because he has been out. So yeah, I think the 205 division, it's easy to always look at light heavyweight and kind of think, hey, it's not what it once was, but there's a lot of fun matchups that can be made in the near future in this weight class.
So a lot of fun fights on this card. Again, no sidekick tonight because, like I said, we're trying to get ourselves primed and ready for this card between, you got Cannonier taking on Strickland. It's one of those ones, it's actually not loaded with prospects. It's loaded with fighters
it's a decent card.
that you know and that you love, but Cannonier Strickland in that main event. You've got a couple of guys ranked in the top 10 of this middleweight division. You go up and down through the card. Co-main event.
It's a super good fight.
Yeah, they're really going to sell that one as they make a mistake there, but they're really going to sell you that co-main event. Zarukian versus Ismagulov.
Dope Bobby Green.
Amir Albazi taking on a UFC debutant Alessandro Costa, who was one of my early picks. I think that was like week 1 of Dana White's Contender Series.
Sevelsberger versus Jake Matthews is buried on that card, but that's going to be a really fun fight based on the fighters that we've seen both those guys be in their last performances. Like, that's a really fun one.
Yeah, there's a lot of Syed Nurmagomedov taking on Syed Yakub Kakrakhmanov, like a lot of really good ones. So make sure you check out that video when it comes out for next week. We're going to try and drop that one late tomorrow night as we did last week. Get you set for that last UFC card of the year. That is the one, and the picks are getting very, very close as we close in on the new year. So Matt, a big time show with question mark kicks. Thanks so much for everybody that hit up that super chat. Jason's got a parlay there, a big one at the end. Just my 2 cents is having fun. Prince Vegeta-san. Matt, I can't wait for the big time card that we have coming up next week. You're going to want to keep locked in with Fight Night Picks, as we always say. Let's get into it. And welcome back to another episode with Fight Night Picks. As always, we're brought to you by SimBody. Vertiball is now SimBody. If you head on over to their website, simbody.com, you're going to get all the great products that you know and love, including the SimBody Vertiroller and the Vertiball that you have seen most likely here in studio. Look at that. Place it, lock it, attach it, Vertiball, all sorts of great stuff over there if you want to roll out those old tired muscles and you don't want to go with that old lacrosse ball. They're also coming out with that very new product that you can see right in front of you. And if I head on over to my cart, look at that. I've already got a Vertiball over there. A little bit of a deal right there. And if you hit the try for 60 days risk-free, use the promo code FNP, and you're going to get 10% off your order. With that code FNP at simbody.com, you're really, really helping out another local company here in New Brunswick, Canada. Can't wait for it. The new name, SimBody, at simbody.com. And as we always